Stop everything you're doing right now, not in a moment, not after this next thought, right now. Because what I'm about to say to you, it wasn't prepared for a crowd. It was prepared for the one who is exhausted from carrying something they can't even name. And if you're still here reading this, watching this, you already know you're not here by accident. You passed the test. The test most people don't even know they're taking. The test of the one who carries without complaining, who holds when everything inside them is screaming to let go, who stays standing in places where anyone else would have collapsed and called it wisdom to walk away. You stayed. You held. You kept going when the weight got heavier instead of lighter. That's not weakness. That's the mark of the chosen one. And today something shifted in the invisible realm. Something moved in the place your eyes cannot see and your logic cannot access. And before another day goes by, before you convince yourself again that the weight you feel is just stress, just life, just the price everyone pays, I need to tell you what heaven saw in you that you have not been able to see in yourself. You didn't arrive here because of an algorithm. You didn't land on this moment because of a recommendation engine or a moment of boredom. You arrived here because you were marked, and what you have been carrying all this time is not a burden in the way the world defines burden. It is the proof of who you are. The weight is the evidence, the pressure is the testimony, and by the time we finish here today, you are going to understand something about yourself that changes the way you walk through every room you enter from this moment forward. There is a scene that plays in the minds of people like you. It's 3 a.m. The house is quiet. Everyone else is asleep. And your mind is running that loop again. The same conversation, the same moment, the same face. Replaying it the way a prosecutor reviews evidence. Looking for the thing you missed, the thing you could have said differently, the thing that might explain why it happened the way it did. You know that scene. You know it because you've lived it more times than you want to admit. And then there's the body. The way it goes rigid in situations that should feel ordinary. A simple conversation. Someone's tone shifts just slightly, and your whole system goes on alert as if the ground might open beneath you, as if betrayal is always one breath away. Not because you're broken, because you've been through something that rewired your instincts. The body learned to protect you when no one else would. You have armor you cannot take off. Not even at home. Not even alone. You sit in a room by yourself, and there is still this vigilance, this readiness, this sense that letting down your guard, even for an hour, would be the thing that finally undoes you, so you keep it on, and you call it strength. And in a way it is. But underneath it there is a person who is desperately tired of holding everything together. The question that won't leave you alone isn't about God. It's not a faith crisis. It's deeper than that. It's this quiet, relentless ache that says, why do I carry so much when I chose the right path? Why is the weight heavier for the one who tried to do what was right? What exactly was stolen from me? And when did I stop knowing who I was before the weight came? That last question. That is the real wound, not the circumstances, not the people who failed you, not even the silence from heaven in those long seasons. The wound is the identity you lost somewhere between the betrayal and the survival. You adapted so completely to carrying the weight that you forgot there was a version of you that existed before it. And now you are living in a body, in a story, in a life that doesn't quite feel like yours. That exhaustion is not a sign you got it wrong. That weight is not proof that God forgot. But I want you to hear this, and I want you to let it land somewhere deeper than your mind. You are going to need more than comfort right now. You're going to need clarity. If what I'm describing is real to you, if this is the ache you haven't been able to put words to, do something right now that is not passive. Press that like button as a prophetic agreement, not as a gesture, not as a favor to an algorithm, as a declaration that you receive what is being said over your life today. When you do that, a prayer is activated over the next 72 hours. A prayer for clarity, for the fog to lift, for the thing that has been hidden in plain sight inside your own soul to become visible. You are not watching this, you are participating in something. I want to stay in this with you for a moment before we go deeper, because this exhaustion, this identity fog, this carrying without knowing what you're carrying, it has a name, and there is a way through it. Not around it, through it. That way through is what the Solomon Code was built for. not a sermon, not a pep talk. A structured path, 3 movements, that takes someone exactly where you are right now and walks them back to themselves, back to the version of their identity that God designed, not the version that trauma, betrayal, or the noise of other people's voices assembled. The details are in the pinned comment right below this video. But right now, I want to show you something in Scripture, because before you understand the path forward, you need to understand what your weight actually is. There was a young man thrown into a pit, not a metaphor, an actual pit, dry, dark, surrounded by the voices of the very people who were supposed to cover him, his brothers, his own blood. And they sat down and ate bread while he was in that pit waiting. There was no vision given to him in that moment, no angel spoke, no peace descended. There was just the pit, and the silence, and the weight of a destiny that made no sense from the inside. The darkest moment of Joseph's story was not an accident. It was not a detour. It was God's most precise act of preparation, and Joseph had no way of knowing it. He could only carry it. That is what I want you to hear, because it is the thing the chosen one almost always misses. Joseph never justified himself to the people who betrayed him, not to his brothers in the pit, not to Potiphar's household, not to Pharaoh's butler who forgot him. He did not waste the weight of his anointing on the court of public opinion. He carried it in silence. And the silence was not defeat, it was strategy. You have done this, maybe without knowing it. Maybe you've held things in because you had no one safe to give them to. Maybe you've stayed quiet when everything in you wanted to scream the truth into the room. You thought it was weakness. You thought the ones who spoke loudest were the ones winning. But the spirit that carries more than it realizes has been prepared for more than it can imagine. The weight is not punishment. The weight is proportional to the assignment. And then there is Egypt. The years Joseph spent in Potiphar's house, in the prison, in the in-between, those were not wasted years. They were the formation of a man who would one day hold the lives of nations in his hands. The exhaustion of those years, the injustice of them, the silence of them, that was the price of maintaining integrity in a rigged game. A game where the rules were written by people who could not see what God had already written over his life. You know what a rigged game feels like. You know the exhaustion of doing everything right in a system that was designed to reward something else. That is not a sign that integrity was the wrong choice. That is the evidence that the game was never the point. Tonight, not this week, not when things calm down tonight, I want you to take a piece of paper or open a note on your phone and do something Joseph never had the chance to do from inside the pit, but you can do right now. It is called the Joseph Inventory, and it comes from the most powerful sentence in his entire story. In Genesis 50:20, "As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring it about that many people should be kept alive as they are today." 3 questions, written in silence, as a prayer diagnosis, not a journaling exercise. First, what I lost. Was it actually a repositioning? Not what it felt like. Not what it looked like to everyone watching. What if the loss was the door and not the ending? Second, where the enemy intended to destroy me, what did God intend at that same point? Not instead of it, at that same point. The same moment of betrayal. The same season of silence, same coordinates. What was God doing there that I couldn't see from inside the pit? Third, what is the version of my story that only God could write? Not the version built on the ruins of what was taken, the version that started before any of it, the version that was already written in the place where your name was spoken before you had a body to carry it. Write those down. Do not skip this. This is not a suggestion inside a video. This is an act of spiritual recognition, you naming what you have been carrying and asking heaven to show you what it was always for. But here is the honest thing, and I'm going to say it plainly because you deserve that from me. One set of questions doesn't replace a process. One night of writing doesn't rebuild an identity that was dismantled over years of pressure, betrayal, and survival mode. A video is a beginning. It is not the path. You don't need more explanation. You need identity. That is the thesis of everything I want to say to you right now. You have had enough explanations, enough sermons that diagnosed the problem without walking you through the solution. Enough content that told you who you were without showing you how to live from that place. What you need, what the chosen one always needs at this stage, is not more information. It is the restoration of the knowledge of who you are, not who others said you were, not who you became in order to survive, but who God marked you to be before any of this began. And here is what I want you to understand about where you are right now. The era of war is behind you. You have survived it. You have carried the weight of it. But surviving is not the end of the story. It is the threshold. What's on the other side of this threshold is not more war. It is governing. Governing your own mind, your own decisions, your own narrative, your own home, your own legacy. But to govern, you have to know who you are. Not the identity that was assembled under pressure. The original one. The one God wrote. That is what the Solomon Code does. And I want to walk you through exactly how, because I don't want you to go to the pinned comment without knowing what you're stepping into. The first movement takes you through a diagnostic, identifying the exact places where your identity was breached, not vaguely, not as a general category, but the precise entry points where the wrong voices got in and started writing the wrong story over you, because you cannot guard a door you cannot find. The second movement is about quieting the soul, not suppressing it, quieting it, learning to sleep in peace again, learning to wake up without that low-grade dread already running before you've opened your eyes, learning what it actually feels like to be in your own body without the armor on, because that is the version of you that makes real decisions, not the armored version in survival mode. The third movement is the daily protocol, anchored in Proverbs, designed for real life, not a monastery, not a 3-hour morning routine, for the person with a job and a family and a phone that doesn't stop. A way of moving through each day with discernment, with clarity, with the unshakable sense of who you are regardless of what the room says. You don't need to know Hebrew. You don't need a theology degree. This was made for the person who is tired and still standing, which is exactly who you are. The Solomon Code, pinned comment right below. Whoever made it to this point in this video did not make it here by accident. Before you move on from this moment, right now, before the next thing, I want to ask you something. Where are you watching this from? Drop your city and state in the comments below. Not because it's a formality, because there is a silent army gathering in this space, and I want to know where the chosen ones are standing today. Then write this with me right there in the comments. I know who I am. Say it as a decree, not a question. Not, I'm trying to figure out who I am. Not, I used to know. Write it as a declaration over whatever is in front of you today. I know who I am. And if you know someone who is fighting in silence right now, someone carrying something heavy with no words for it, be a seed in their life today. Send this to them. Let this be the thing that reaches them when nothing else could. The guide is in the pinned comment. Take a look when you're ready. And I want to say something honestly about that word ready. What we keep putting off often becomes never, not because we don't want it, because the accumulated exhaustion makes it so easy to say later, until later becomes a season and the season becomes a year. You don't have to feel ready. You just have to decide. Whenever you're there, the pinned comment will be waiting. May wisdom from above be your foundation today. May your soul find rest and real rest, not just the absence of noise. May you walk out of this moment knowing that the weight you've been carrying was never meant to crush you. It was meant to show you what you were built for. Until our next meeting.